You did everything they told you to do. You worked hard. You saved your money. You avoided unnecessary debt. So tell me, why are you still lying awake at night worrying about money? Because if saving was supposed to buy peace of mind, why doesn't it feel that way? Before we go any further, if you've ever worried about money, even after doing everything right, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to Oren TV. Every week we have conversations like this, not about getting rich, but about finding peace with the money you've worked your whole life to earn. Now, let's talk about why this happens. Here's what surprised me. For many people, the biggest financial problem after retirement isn't running out of money. It's never feeling safe enough to enjoy the money they already have. And once you understand why, you'll probably stop blaming yourself. Because this isn't about being bad with money. It's about spending 40 years teaching your brain one lesson and expecting it to suddenly learn another. Imagine being 20 years old. You get your first paycheck. Almost immediately, people start giving you advice. Save your money. Think about the future. Don't waste what you earn. You'll thank yourself one day. And you believed it. You worked. You sacrificed. You skipped vacations. You drove older cars. You postponed buying things you wanted. Not because it was easy, but because you believed there would come a day when all those sacrifices would finally bring peace of mind. Then one day, that day arrived. You retired. Or maybe you're getting close. You look at your savings, and something doesn't feel right. The peace you imagined never showed up. Instead, you started asking yourself questions. What if inflation gets worse? What if I need long-term care? What if I live longer than I expected? What if this isn't enough? Does that sound familiar? If it does, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're not bad with money. And you're certainly not the only person feeling this way. Let me tell you about Susan. Susan is 69 years old. She worked as a school administrator for over 35 years. She wasn't rich, but she was disciplined. She saved whenever she could. She paid off her home. She avoided credit card debt. She built a retirement fund she was proud of. Today, she has enough money to replace her old refrigerator. The one in her kitchen is nearly 20 years old. It makes strange noises every morning. Sometimes it stops working for a few minutes. Her son tells her, "Mom, just buy a new one." She smiles and says, "This one still works." But that's not the real reason. The real reason is something she doesn't say out loud. What if I need that money someday? Weeks become months. Months become years. The refrigerator finally breaks. Now she has to buy one anyway. Only this time, it's more expensive. Can I ask you something? Have you ever postponed buying something you truly needed? Not because you couldn't afford it, but because spending the money made you uncomfortable? If that's happened to you, write me in the comments. I'd really like to know how many people have felt this. Here's something nobody talks about. Retirement changes your life, but it doesn't automatically change your mind. Think about it. For 40, maybe even 50 years, your brain had one job: protect your future. Every paycheck had a purpose. Pay the bills. Save what you could. Avoid unnecessary spending. Prepare for emergencies. Think about tomorrow. You repeated that pattern thousands of times. Eventually, it stopped being something you did. It became who you were. You became careful, responsible, disciplined, the kind of person who always thought ahead. And that's exactly why you're here today. Your savings didn't appear by accident. They were built one decision at a time, one sacrifice at a time, one not today after another. But here's the problem. Your life changed, and your brain didn't get the memo. You're no longer saving for retirement. You're living it. Yet your mind is still acting like you're 35 years old, trying to protect a future that has already arrived. Can you see the difference? For decades, your goal was accumulation. Now, your goal is different. It's learning how to use what you've already built. And that's much harder than most people realize, because nobody teaches you how to make that transition. We spend 40 years learning how to save. Almost nobody teaches us how to spend without guilt. That's why retirement can feel so confusing. You know the numbers. You know you've planned. But emotionally, it still feels risky. Imagine someone spends 40 years locking the front door every single night. Every night. Without fail. Eventually, they don't even think about it anymore. It becomes automatic. Now imagine one day someone says, "You don't need to lock the door anymore." Would they suddenly stop? Of course not. They'd probably check it twice, maybe 3 times. Not because the door needs it, because the habit is stronger than the situation. Money works the same way. For decades, your brain learned that spending could create problems. Saving created safety. So today, every time you spend, your brain quietly whispers, be careful, even when there's no real danger. Can I ask you something? When you buy something today, what worries you the most? Is it running out of money? Unexpected medical bills? Helping your children if they need you? Or maybe you're not even sure. Write just one word in the comments. Healthcare, inflation, family, or everything. I'm genuinely curious because I think many people watching this video are carrying the same invisible weight. There's a belief that many of us grew up with. If I save enough money, I'll finally stop worrying. It sounds logical, but for many people, that's not what happens. The amount of money changes. The worry simply finds a new place to live. When you're younger, you worry about paying the mortgage. Later, you worry about college for your children. Then, retirement arrives, and suddenly, you worry about spending the money you've already saved. The worry changes its clothes, but it never leaves. Why? Because peace of mind doesn't automatically come from a larger bank account. It comes from believing, I'll be okay. And that's a very different thing. Think about two retirees. Both have exactly the same amount of money, the same monthly income, the same expenses. One enjoys traveling, treats the grandchildren to ice cream, goes out to dinner once in a while, sleeps well. The other checks the bank account every day, feels guilty after every purchase, cancels plans, avoids replacing things that are worn out. Who has more money? Neither. They have the same amount. The difference isn't in their bank account. It's in the story they tell themselves about money. And maybe that's the story we need to change. Can I share something with you? I don't believe most retirees are looking for luxury. They're not dreaming about sports cars, or designer clothes, or giant houses. Most people over 60 want something much simpler. They want to enjoy a quiet dinner without feeling guilty. They want to visit family more often, take a small vacation, replace the old recliner that's been hurting their back for years, buy better walking shoes, fix the leaking roof, maybe spoil the grandkids once in a while. Those aren't irresponsible purchases. They're part of living. And isn't that what retirement was supposed to be? Somewhere along the way, many of us confused protecting money with protecting life. But they're not the same thing. Money is meant to protect your life. Your life isn't meant to protect your money. Think about that for a second. How many years did you spend making sacrifices? How many weekends did you work? How many things did you postpone? How many times did you say, maybe next year? You weren't making those sacrifices because you loved saving. You were buying something much more valuable. Freedom, time, choices. If retirement has finally given you those things, why are you still asking permission to enjoy them? Maybe the permission has to come from you. The next time you're about to spend money, I want you to try something. Don't ask, can I afford this? You've probably asked that question your entire adult life. Instead, ask this. Is this helping me enjoy the life I spent 40 years building? That question changes everything. Because suddenly, you're no longer thinking like someone who's trying to survive. You're thinking like someone who's finally allowed to live. And those are very different mindsets. Here's something I'd like you to do this week. Take a piece of paper. Draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write, things I keep postponing. On the right side, write, why? Be honest. Maybe you'll write, a new mattress, a visit to my sister, new glasses, fixing the bathroom, taking a weekend trip. Then look at your answers. Are you postponing those things because you truly can't afford them? Or because you're afraid? That single question can reveal more about your relationship with money than your bank statement ever will. Before we finish, I'd like you to remember something. Your retirement savings were never supposed to become a museum, something you look at, protect, and never touch. They were meant to support your life, to make difficult days a little easier, to make good moments a little better, to give you choices, to give you peace. You worked for decades to create that opportunity. Don't let fear steal it from you, because one day, none of us will remember the balance in our bank account. We'll remember the places we visited, the conversations we had, the birthdays we celebrated, the family dinners, the afternoons with our grandchildren, the quiet moments that made life meaningful. Money can't create those memories by itself, but it can help make them possible. And maybe that's the real purpose of saving, not to accumulate forever, but to live a little more freely when the time finally comes. Before you leave, I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing you've been putting off, even though you know you could probably afford it? A trip? A home repair? A hobby? Something for yourself? Share it in the comments. You might be surprised how many people have the very same answer. And if today's conversation helped you see your money a little differently, I'd be honored if you subscribed to Orin TV. Every week, we talk about retirement, money, and the emotional side of personal finance. Because after 50, financial success isn't just about having enough. It's about finally finding the peace to enjoy what you've spent a lifetime building.